thought Star Citizen would be a nice backdrop for this. I've been playing Star Citizen a lot lately, but I have watched the whole Rittenhouse trial, and it was like 2 weeks of my life. But uh, I have a lot of observations from it, and I'd have to start off with that the system, the justice system, the trial. Speaking strictly of the trial, that went the way it should have went. Um, maybe you think the justice system works in a different way. Maybe if you think it should have worked in another way, well, you're not the only one, but this is the way it works, and it becomes fairly clear um, why it works. Uh, so part of the whole thing was watching. Can I not sit here? I want to sit here. There we go. All right, they changed all the colors. So part of the whole beginning was, what are they going to allow the jury to hear as part of the official case? Maybe the jury heard some of it, maybe they didn't, right? And on one side, because we got a spectrum here of people who think differently at this point, right? So some statements that the defendant made before the trial were not allowed to be discussed. And the history of plaintiffs, the state, 3 guys that got shot, that was not allowed in either. So keep that in mind, right? I mean, that makes a pretty even playing field. That's a pretty important lesson, I think, that that everybody needs to learn is that, you know, well, gee, listen, I'm a dad. I would kill a motherfucker. But anyways, where am I now? Where'd I go? I think I'm dead. I think I died. Oh, wait, no, there I am. Hey, Star Citizen. You're gonna need to go the other way. So what I'm getting at here is that there was stuff that happened before the incident that they didn't let in. And I would have thought that all of it would have been let in, to be honest with you. I, just from a layman's standpoint, I would have thought that both sides would have gotten all that kind of history in. That really would have turned into this crazy kind of he said, she said battle. We wouldn't know the truth about the statements that were being made in court for weeks or months, maybe even years. And that's the problem, right? That's why none of that stuff was let in there. So I won't go into no matter how much facts, here's the way that I see it at this point. No matter how many facts that if I were to present them, it doesn't matter. There's going to be somebody out there that's going to say, "No, no, that's not how it happened." And it I'm not here for an argument. I'm just here to comment on what I pulled away from watching this whole trial. Um So that's it for the kind of the pre-trial. As far as the prosecutor's conduct, which really came under scrutiny. Now, if you're watching this trial and you're watching this whole trial and you're listening to this prosecutor, right? You have to ask yourself now, what would happen if I was on trial for something? Is this how prosecutors work? Right? Now, all of these problems are kind of real, right? I mean, when you see people talking about this stuff and problems with the prosecution's conduct and the way that it was presenting evidence and maybe the handling of evidence, the all of this was bad. You shouldn't nobody should be nobody should want that prosecution for anybody. I don't know because I see things like, oh, the judge was, against the prosecutor from the start, and it's like the prosecutor was horrible. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. I'm not saying I've watched a lot of trials. I have watched a few, but this prosecutor was, I've never seen lines pushed by a prosecutor so much. So trial's over. I don't know. I don't know if another prosecutor would have done any better. Is the other thing. The prosecutor is motivated to win, right? And I don't know what this prosecutor's record is. I don't know if he's, you know, has 1,000 convictions or if he's got one conviction and 50 losses. I have no idea. I can't comment on that at all. But you would have thought that the prosecution, especially knowing this is televised, right? And I'll get to that later, but knowing that this is televised, I really would have expected a better presentation, a more coherent presentation. The defense just kind of slid into everything. I mean, you can't blame the defense. You can't even blame the judge on a lot of this. I mean, when you just slide into something that easy, I mean, what do you expect people to do? Um, Man, that was just not good. Why am I in here? Come on, stop that. Go away. Um, because and now that the trial's over, now they're saying even more stuff, right? That um, we got high resolution drone video. Well, it's all very disappointing to watch your prosecutors do that, and you have to think, what if it was me? What if it was my kid that was in that situation, right? So yeah, the prosecutor's job is to win, and if that is the best that you get at the local prosecution level, um, and those are the kind of tricks, and it's not a high profile case, I could see a lot of people getting railroaded, and that would be my big concern. It wouldn't be that this kid got off, or that he was declared not guilty. It would be that is this the way prosecutors act across the nation? Is this what's happening when people don't have good lawyers? What happens? It's obvious that this kid had a good legal team. What happens when you don't even have a good single lawyer? and prosecutors do this. So it was pretty eye-opening, right? In that standpoint. So let's get into let's get into the gun facts. And there were a few things that were said that I didn't agree with at all. Um, when uh, when the defense said, uh, and I'm paraphrasing, all bullets are bullets. That is a true and a false statement. That is, things can be both true and false at the same time. If you take your step back and all bullets are the same, you can't argue with that. I mean, they're all the same. They're all meant to do one thing. Don't kid yourself. Um, but here's where I have a problem with the prosecution, right? Is I have seen these kind of, and I pay attention to gun trials, gun related trials. So I didn't pay any attention to the O.J. Simpson. I didn't pay any attention to, well, anything. I pay attention to gun trials, right? And we've had a few of them in this country. Um, for decades, law enforcement in this country has been going after hollow point bullets. Hollow point bullets, they're just designed to kill people. Hollow point bullets are designed to kill officers and stuff like that. And then um, an interesting thing happened, and uh, this was about 20 years ago, is when this started. They wanted to remove lead from bullets, and this was seen as a way to get rid of bullets altogether. But lead costs money. Pulling that stuff out costs money. It poisons. It does poison the berm. That's for sure. You can never use that dirt for growing food again. It's lead toxic. Um, why am I telling you this? Because now we're looking at cores of bullets that are not made of lead the same way that they were made of lead 20 years ago. They're a much different lead alloy that's meant to be less toxic, or or it's a non-lead alloy altogether, meant to simulate the weight or the density, one or the other, of actual lead. Full metal jacket bullets. If you go and ask any gun owner, a full metal jacket bullet is a standard bullet, hands down. Unless you're firing a revolver or a 1911 with lead wad cutters or something like that, and those are all different bullets that are designed to hit people different ways, right? um, than a full metal jacket. A full metal jacket means that there is copper over it. And the number one reason why you want to put copper over a bullet like that is simply to prevent fouling. Simply to make sure that the barrel of the gun or that you're shooting lasts longer, that it doesn't get leaded, and that it's a little bit cleaner to shoot, especially if the core is no longer lead. That's what a full metal jacket. Every every training level ammo for 9 millimeter and above is full metal jacket. It just means that there's a metal covering over the core of the bullet. Now you get into what that core is made into, and you can get into penetrators, right? Which is a solid steel, heavier weight core bullet that will zip right through a windshield. What Kyle was shooting, from what I could tell from the trial, was probably like Winchester white box. Nothing special, nothing meant to do damage, and we are in a ammo shortage. And in these times, it's not out of line for people to be shooting very expensive ammo, hunting ammo, for that caliber that is also full metal but hollow point, right? So you've got this whole gambit. He was probably shooting the cheapest stuff. That is so dumb to push Full Metal Jacket as if it's something that everybody needs to be worried about now. Because Full Metal Jacket is, like the defense says, that is the kind of the standard bullet. All bullets are not created equal. There are better bullets that you want to get for home defense, right? That's all that I'm saying on that. So, oh gee, the evidence that they let in, the prosecutor, the stuff on the guns. Um, as a layman in a trial, in this trial in particular, I don't understand why the jury was not sequestered. It must have made their job a lot harder. Let me put it that way. I'm quite surprised that they weren't sequestered, but they weren't. Um, the judge, uh, the judge brought it up himself. Why televise this? Why televise this if the media is going to get involved? If the media is going to follow everyone around, why televise this? Why not sequester everybody, do it all in secret, and then give everybody a day or two to scatter across the country or whatever they do after a trial like this to go hide from the press, and and then tell them what tell us what the verdict was, and then and it seems like that's what a lot of people want. Now we lose so much. For instance, we lose. I think the judge acted with as much integrity as he possibly could during the trial, to be honest with you. If you ask people that know me, I would have lost my shit um, from many directions during that trial. But that's mainly it. The jury had a really hard time with this. It's sad to see where we're going with this because you always have bias whenever you walk through life, right? So your first bias, my first bias on this is, you know, let's go Kyle, right? I mean, let's go. You're done. This is now over. Um, it's probably never over for this kid, but this stage is he made it through, um, and he should have, according to all of the evidence that was presented. If the left thinks that more evidence could have been presented, that's opening a door for more evidence that Second Amendment supporters, whatever, would have gotten into. That's what neither side realizes, is that opening those doors would have probably not swayed the trial either way, because you open one door for one side for the plaintiffs, you have to open up those same doors for the defendants, and that's just fair. um, and that's important when we got to keep that in mind. I, I'm so amazed at, first off, the right in this country is so funny. They're funny. You have to admit, they're funny. They're not mad, they're not angry. They're just funny. And it's a funny because it's true. And that's got to be infuriating for the left, because the left has no sense of humor whatsoever. So I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what went on tonight, right? I will find out about it tomorrow. I always wait on these things. I'm not watching live streams, obviously. I'm in Star Citizen screwing around. But yeah, it just absolutely blows me away that the mainstream media is not they're not taking this serious. They're just not taking it serious the way that they should take it. Hey, there's somebody else up here with me. What's up, guy? Enjoy the hab. Go check it out. Let's go back to the sub deck. Um, so it is so crazy, right? That's where we're at. Um, Now, where does this lead us? And that's the interesting thing because everybody's fear, the people who see the clear self-defense, their fear is that this would have been used to remove your right of self-defense. And no matter how crazy you say that sounds, that's what this was about. So because this kid was running from the moment he was running. That is the moment that he was running. He was running. That's all there is to it. He was running, and boom, he got dragged down into this. Um, there's been a lot of saying like, "Hey, well, what if the three people that he shot were all good guys?" Well, they weren't, and they weren't, and three three weren't good guys. And that's what people, it absolutely blows my mind that you look at the timelines of when this happened, what time at night these things were happening, where the police were, what the police procedures were at the time. So the police procedures, in case you don't know this, and this is very standard, this is they use this technique in Europe. They've used this technique for 20 years. One of the biggest example was the L.A. riots. Not the first L.A. riots, but what I'm calling the second L.A. riots, because they just had helicopters that were just exposing exactly what the police do. Is the police, they march the protesters around. They keep the protesters moving, and by keeping them moving, right? The idea is that they won't have time to set shit on fire or break shit, right? But Antifa, a lot of these organized protesters, they know this, or people that have been in multiple protests, they know this. They like to break off. They like to wear the cops out, so to speak. They like to once this crimes start happening in different areas, do the cops move in? Do the cops pull back? Los Angeles, the cops pulled back. Los Angeles, millions and millions of dollars worth. I think like the estimated price per cop car was $700,000, and they lost like 14,000, or they lost like 14 cop cars. Just burned, just destroyed, never going to be able to be used again. Money, taxpayer money gone. Um, Same incident where the rifle was taken out of the cop car, right? Um, so we have burning, we have looting, we have situations where the protesters have gotten the upper hands on the police, and the police are nowhere to be found. When your place is burning down on a good night, on a good night, nice calm night, nothing's going on, how long do you think it takes the fire department to show up at a burning building? Like, do you think it's seconds or do you think it's minutes? Because it's not seconds. Now, if you've got a police line, you've got people throwing fire bombs, doing whatever to dumpsters. It just wasn't. It just wasn't the protest. The peaceful protest happened during the daylight hours. As soon as the sun came down, things went violent. And this is a pattern that we've seen in riots for 30 years. You can't ignore this pattern. And that's what happened. That's what pushed us all here. Now, now that we have the verdict, though, what will happen? What is the best case and what is the worst case? And then what percentage weight do we hand to what direction can we go from here? Are we all going to grow up and realize that, yes, this is America and we really should be civilized? Or are we going to say, you know what? You just better not even try and defend yourself. Because you can talk about in the gray area, right? Oh, you can damage property. You should be able to fuck up all the property you want, and you shouldn't have to worry about being killed. And I would say no, right there. I would say that if one or two guys show up armed and tell you to back the fuck off, any advance you make at that point, you're already a criminal. Any advance you make at that point, forget about it. I don't know what to say. You're not thinking straight. You're not thinking about reality anymore. You are now in this bubble of wishing. It's something that there's no point in arguing about because if you're there, you're there, and you're gonna have a hard time in other aspects of your life. Um, this was our legal system. It worked. It had a lot going against it. So the streams that I watched, I only watched one stream, the court TV stream that had no commentary. After I had watched the live streams, I did watch a couple other segments of other live streams, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, and a couple other smaller YouTubers. Um, and one of the law guys. Not going to mention which one. There's a lot of them, and they're all good. But I didn't. I just watched segments, and what I didn't like was, um, I didn't like the commentary. I didn't like the commentary. If you're a juror, you don't get the commentary, and if you're watching MSNBC, you're on MSNBC's side from their commentary, and you may be there for the commentary. If if you can't sit through the whole trial, watching it on MSNBC was not good, and I'm not even sure they showed the whole defense, to be honest with you. They may have talked over the defense. They may have. I, I think they talked over the prosecution too. A lot of them talked over all of it. So um, worthless. Uh, man, it was it was what our justice system is supposed to do. You can't get mad at it. If anything, you should make sure that all of these trials are televised so that everybody can watch them and make sure that the prosecution is not getting away with absolute and utter nonsense at some points. There were the theatrics were not required at all. And the prosecution should have known that that kid would have been way too hard to paint as a violent thug ready to start open fire in a crowded street. It's just not happening. It was, and they used his Instagram against him, which, or they wanted to use his Instagram against him, which was absolutely nutty. Absolutely nutty. And this is what you get. This is what you get, left. So yeah, go through your Twitter, both of you, both sides. Go through your Twitter, and I don't have Twitter. Mine was taken away by the British government. So go get your Twitter and go scrub that because they're gonna go through it. And I forgot what his Instagram name was. Was it Instagram? I'm so old. But it was something, and it was hilarious. It was a hilarious name. It was a name that if I looked at, I would have laughed and I would have said, yeah, that's like a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old that came up with that name, maybe younger. I see calls now to raise the age limit where you can own a rifle from 18 up to 21. And this is a mistake. This is why people who support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, this is why we're so wary of gun control, because you can't take any more steps, it feels like, to people that are pro Second Amendment. Because now you're saying that my 18-year-old can't own a firearm until he's 21. And in a lot of these houses where children grow up with firearms and learn about firearms, they're gone at 21. They're not even in the house at 21 anymore. When are they going to get this practice if all of a sudden they're not, your dad has to make sure everything's locked up? Oh, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. And if you look at how many teenagers, boys and girls, have fended off home invasions with firearms because their parents taught them where it was, how to use it safely, and only to use it in defense, right? And boy, it absolutely blows me away. There was a time in this country where high schools had shooting ranges in the basement, and we didn't have anything near the type of craziness that we do with so there's a personal responsibility here thing that needs to be looked at. And if you can't defend yourself, you can't be responsible for yourself, right? That's the underlying thing that people don't understand with people who are uh, supporting the Second Amendment or supporting self-defense, is that is what it's all about. It's all about it's all about being able to defend yourself, and it has less to do with property. You walk in your house, there's a guy standing there with your TV. You tell him to get out, and he just starts beating your ass. What are you What makes that okay? What on earth makes that okay? I If it's a dumpster fire, yeah, I don't think I want to leave yet. Do I want to leave yet? No. If it's a dumpster fire, yeah, you may want to. If the dumpster fire is like, it's like dating, right? You're out with somebody and you're having a good time. Maybe, uh, you go to a comedy club. I don't know. You're out with somebody and you're having a good time. You're talking to them. You see the red flags. You see them. You ignore them, right? I would say that by the time dumpsters are being lit on fire, you have already ignored red flags that have told you that you need to get the fuck out and go home. And if shit gets really crazy, go get a gun and go to your basement, right? Because this is insane. Thinking that and now the left is like, oh, everybody now thinks this is actually a different ship. Everybody thinks, oh, now the left or the right is going to be out with guns all the time. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe the left will be out with guns. Because let's keep in mind, there were people there with records who were told not to carry a gun that had their firearm concealed, right? Which, I may be a layman, but Wisconsin is a conceal permit state, meaning that you have to have a valid permit. Now, Missouri used to be a permit state. And the moment that that permit expires, you better not walk out carrying a concealed firearm. You'll go to jail and you won't be able to get another carry and conceal permit. So I had a buddy that called me and he said, "Hey, you're an old veteran. Let me ask you. I've got a friend, and this is where we are geographically. And last night was crazy. And now where he lives, the corner that this guy lived was crazy. And he said, my friend wants me and a couple guys to come down to his house and stand in his yard with rifles." Now, I first told him that he had to do what he thought he had to do. But I told him that personally, I would not be standing out in the front yard. I would have two or three guys just standing out in the front yard, dressed as, you normally would, shorts and t-shirts. Have those firearms by the door inside. Don't put people on the roof unless shit starts to hit the fan. Now, shit was hitting the fan. I don't think people are always like, "Oh, well, let me see. Uh, let's take a cop and a regular person, right? Regular civilian. Cop needs to arrest the civilian. Maybe the cop doesn't need to arrest the civilian. The civilian freaks out because they're under pressure because there's a cop sitting in front of them, and everybody gets stressed out when there's a cop. The cop's under pressure because he's looking at a person. Maybe this person is bigger than him, right? Maybe the cop has an injury at the moment. Who knows what's going through either of these people? I've never been on either of the sides, so I wouldn't know, but I've seen stress. And you pick a side and then you expect the other side to handle the stress. So if you support the cop, the person in the car shouldn't have been freaking out, shouldn't have been yelling at the cop, shouldn't have been doing all this. Meanwhile, cop that pulled his taser, the cop that pulled his gun, you know, should have been calm, should have been cool, should have de-escalated the situation. And people are people. So, man, that would have been a stressful situation. So that's it. I've probably over talked on this. Um, we'll see. We'll see. People go crazy and they need to stop. They need to stop.